Hey, you clicked on this video, and to say thanks, I'm going to show you the way I make ribs. Off the rip, the first thing I consider is the amount of salt I'm going to use. I like to do 1.2 times the total weight. So these ribs weighed 9.74 pounds multiplied by 16, divided by 100, times by 1.2, and that will equal 1.87 ounces. And that will be the maximum salt I will use, so I'll set aside that much salt. So this first step is the step I do the night before I barbecue. I take them out of the package and I give them a light brush of apple juice and apple cider vinegar. I'll brush them down on both sides and then I'm going to add my entire salt for the cook. Also, this would be where you either remove or score the membrane. Since these packs from Costco come in sets of 3 racks, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to make them. But first, I'm going to tuck these ribs away for the night in a clinging wrap because there are 3 additional ingredients I need to work on. My sauce, my rub, and my binder. In general, there are 3 bases you can use for barbecue sauce: mayo, ketchup, and mustard. For pork, I'd recommend using ketchup or mustard. For this one, I used ketchup. I started by cutting up about 1/4 of an onion, a decent amount of garlic, and then also a jalapeno for some kick. A lot of times I also like adding fruit juice to my barbecue sauces. In this case, I use blackberry juice. I just kind of mushed it over my strainer until I got enough juice. Okay, now to my stove. I'm just going to add the aforementioned ingredients together and then add a splash of bourbon and apple cider vinegar to the pot, also a little more salt. Then let that come up to a simmer before depositing a bunch of ketchup into the pot and stirring to combine. Finish off by chucking some mustard, chili powder, and cayenne pepper into the sauce and stirring. Now I care about conservation, so I'm just going to use the same ketchup bottle and funnel my sauce into there when it's done. So you can do all that, or you can, just buy a pretty good sauce from the store. Next special ingredient is the rub. For this, I actually don't add salt to it because I salted the night before. All I add is turbinado sugar, paprika, cayenne pepper, chili powder, cumin, more turbinado sugar, and more paprika. Now just shake it all up and it's good to go. So you can do that, or you can, just buy a pretty good rub from the store. Last but certainly not, actually it is least, is the binder. You could just use mustard by itself, but I like to enhance it a little bit by adding honey, cider vinegar, also a little bit of Tabasco sauce. Just mixing up together, and now we're ready for the actual part you were here for, the ribs. Now this first method is my flagship way to cook ribs. It's tried and true and simple. Start by unwrapping the ribs, applying the binder to the ribs, and then applying the rub to the binder. I got my smoker heated up to 220 degrees where I'm going to put the ribs on for 3 hours. But somewhere within those 3 hours, I remembered that I like to add a drip pan filled with apple juice and apple cider vinegar next to the ribs. After 3 hours, I'm going to emit a very healthy squeeze of barbecue sauce onto the ribs, brush them down evenly, close the lid, and crank the temp up to 250 for 1 hour. After your excruciating wait, you will be greeted by this beautiful rack of ribs. To me, perfect ribs are completely bite through but not fall off the bone. The pros of this method is that it's easy, delicious, and you can pretty much maximize the capacity of your grill. The cons is that you need some expensive smoker, which not everyone has, which brings me to method 2, oven ribs. Okay, it's not that big of a deal. It'll be fine, trust me. It starts almost identical to the previous method, except I'm going to add 1 ingredient to the binder, liquid smoke. Now looking at the label, it says just to add a little, so I'm just going to add a few drops into the binder. If I flippantly splotch them onto the ribs, it'll taste like straight up gasoline. Besides that, the setup's pretty much the same: binder, rub. So for these oven ribs, I'm going to put them on a sheet tray over a wire rack. And to create a little steam in the oven, I'm going to put apple juice and apple cider vinegar on the sheet tray below the ribs. Next, I go in my oven at 225. After 3 hours, I brush barbecue sauce on them and crank it up to 250. After another hour, they're done. So I'm a level with you. These are pretty good, and they'll scratch the itch if you don't have a smoker. But the only way I can recommend them to you is if you don't have a smoker, because they're just not the same as real authentic barbecue ribs. Okay, on to method 3, also called the 3-2-1 method, or as I call it, the bougie method. Now compared to method 1, method 3 starts the exact same way. Difference is, after the first 3 hours, I'm going to bring them inside, I'm going to get out some butcher paper, I'm going to wrap them with additional butter and maple syrup and apple juice and apple cider vinegar. I'm going to wrap them and put them back on the smoker for another 2 hours. Now here comes the fun part. Take the ribs out of the wrap and make sure that every drop of those delicious braising liquids from the wrap end up on top of those ribs. And then, next part, well, you guessed it, apply sauce, crank up to 250 for 1 hour. These ribs are so tender that I'm just going to show you me cutting them in real time. As of today, these are the best ribs that I know how to make. The question is the additional time and effort worth it compared to method 1? Honestly, you're going to have to answer that for yourself.